Hey guys and girls, Boardnail back with you, and I return to Ozark on this video. This is my review of Season 1, Episode 3. The episode is called My Dripping Ship. Full spoilers from the start of this review, just warning you in case you haven't seen it as always. And I would say this is the funniest episode so far. There's like a couple of really laugh out loud type moments. It's probably the episode where Jason Bateman gets to use some of his comedic skills which he's known for, some of his more like deadpan sarcastic like delivery and lines. I think the character has always had that in the first two episodes. It's just some of the scenes involving him were like more heavy going, and it's I think there was like the lines and the gags were a bit less played up. The episode opens in a very entertaining scene, which is like a good example of this, because they have their furniture delivered from, I think it's Chicago they're from originally, and so it gets delivered, but there's like a screw up, and for some reason it's like left outside their house. So Marty and his wife Wendy have a big blow up with the like delivery guy, and like obviously Marty's getting really pissy and sarcastic, and he's saying things like, tell me one situation in all your time delivering furniture where like an order form has said to you, deliver all our furniture to the house, but put none of it on the inside of the house, put all of it on the outside of the house. So it's really funny stuff, and again, good delivery, and there's some good lines like that throughout the episode. Obviously Marty has got like his business now. Is the blue car obviously is little like sort of, you know, play for Rachel in the previous episode in the bar. That has worked. He's come on board. I think it's the sort of situation where she still knows what he's up to. She's like maybe still doesn't trust him 100%, but she's sort of gone with it anyway, and she sees the potential. And I hope we see more of Rachel, I'll say that, because I like that actress, and so far I'm quite liking the character. I think she is, on the face of it anyway, one of the more likeable characters in the show up to this point. So there's some decent scenes with those two. It's a big episode for Ruth, which I'll talk more about. It sort of further cements who her character's going to be moving forward, and that she is sort of like the dominant like character in her family out of like all the siblings. She gets given the job by Marty in this episode. Like basically it's like a form of blackmail, where she points out to him that she has stuff on him, and that it's probably safer to have someone like her around. And he sort of gives her like a knockback where he's kind of like, you know, shows her up on a video camera where, well, you're sort of implemented well, and he just gives her like a job washing dishes, just a basic sort of job where he can like keep an eye on her. And that doesn't go down too well with Rachel, because she knows about her history, like living in the area. She knows that she's got like this massive criminal rap street and stuff, but it's a thing now. Obviously, you know, it's a way for Ruth to get on board, and that, you know, she's sort of inbreaded now and has a job and has a plan, which she lays out later in the episode. There's a couple like really strong Ruth scenes. It's also a good episode for Wendy, actually. You know, Laura Linney gets to flex her muscles a bit more in the episode. There's a couple of scenes which again are pretty funny. There's an entertaining rant she has in the supermarket, because she's talking about like this pistachio ice cream earlier in the episode that she really wants to get for the family, and she rings up this particular supermarket, and they say that they've got it, but then when she gets there, apparently they don't have it. They've only got mint. So she goes on this rant at this, this sort of one employee, and she goes off on one about how pistachio, mint, two different, and it's one of these great scenes that Laura Linney really brings to life. Like, you can really feel the passion and the rage. It's a funny scene, but it's also a character scene. It's the sort of scene where, because one of the things that this episode shows is how the family in general, and Laura Linney, her character Wendy, is really struggling to adapt to the new climate. I think all of them are, including Marty, but he's hiding it a bit more because he's so desperate to save his own bacon and to keep things rolling and get this money laundered. So it's almost like he's putting this face on it. But yeah, we sort of see the effects it's having on Wendy in this episode, and how it's sort of slowly grinding her down. And I think that's part of the purpose of that scene, just to show that she's used to certain things where they come from in a bigger city, and suddenly it's like a rude awakening where these things aren't easily available. And there's certain things going on where she kind of looks to get herself a job. She looks to get a job as a letting agent, because she sort of gets talking to, I think his name's Sam, the one who showed her the house and stuff, and she kind of talks her way into that job. He doesn't totally agree with it, but later on she sort of shows up, and she actually uses her own furniture, which has just been sitting in storage, as a way to try and sell this house to people. So she actually impresses Sam, and he kind of lets her have the job after that. But the other big stuff with her is then there's this rivalry that's sort of building between the two families, between Marty's family and between the family, I forget their names, but the Ruth's family. And obviously things aren't dying down from the last episode, and there's this stuff where there's dead animals that appear on the outside their house, and they're wondering where that was, and it's obviously really pisses them off. And anyway, Wendy takes it as a threat, and she assumes that it's come from the other family. So there's a scene near the end of the episode where she shows back up at their house with a dead animal of her own, and she throws it at one of the brothers on the roof. It's again a really convincing scene because of the rage that Laura Linney puts into it, and you just get the sense of this woman at the end of her tether, and she just screams at them and says, stay away from my property, and don't be bringing any more dead animals, otherwise the next one you'll be licking up yourself, or words to that effect. I can't remember exactly what she said, but this is definitely a bit more of a venting episode for Wendy. They do give her a bit more to do in this one, so that's a good scene as well. And obviously there's a bit of mystery to that. It's not 100% then that's what's happening. Then it was them who you sort of guess there could be a twist where it might turn out to be someone else, but Wendy is sort of assuming that it was them. So I think there's just little bits and pieces with the other characters in this one. The big scene with Charlotte is that she gets some revenge on the brother of the family, the one who obviously she was on the speedboat with, and who sort of chucked her overboard and left her for the cops. So it's again quite a comedic scene because she's gone for this job interview, and things are actually going well, and she's impressed her parents, Wendy at least, that she's got this one, and Marty's like waiting in the car, and she sort of, things are going well, as I said in the interview, until she spots like the guy outside. I'll have to memorise all their names, this family, but she spots him, so she takes the opportunity to come running out. She's like, excuse me, and she just wallops him one, and it's a great scene, because you can't really blame her, that jerk had it coming. But it's sort of this ironic sort of scene where it's a good moment for the character that she gets, a measure of revenge, but at the same time she has sort of cost herself her job as well, because she just gets back in the car after that, and they like drive off. And another funny little like ironic touch is that Marty's actually impressed. Like, he doesn't give her any shit about probably screwing up the job interview. He's like, good shot, I improve. So that's pretty funny. As I said, it's mostly like just little tidbits. Besides that, Marty finds a way into like the strip club, because he obviously decides then the blue car alone isn't going to be enough to like launder all this money. So he actually, is slowly plugging away at getting control of the strip club as well. So at one point in the episode, which I wasn't sure if it was meant to be like in his head, because some of these scenes have been, but I think it is meant to be like a real scene where he starts talking to one of the dancers from that club, and we don't get much of it, but it's just a small scene where he kind of is paying her to get information on her employer and like the setup there. So that's obviously something which they're going to return to. We also find out that one of the FBI agents, like the two that are like, trying to catch Marty or trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, he's actually gone undercover in Ozark. We see him one scene in the bar, and then later on we see him with like the other FBI guy. We see him at one point with a guy, like having sex, but he's someone he's hired. I think we're meant to like think that's the case. So just little tidbits of that. We also get like his partner question Marty and also Wendy. That's earlier in the episode. That's when I think it's quite a good visual scene, and the way it's directed, because it's like obviously after the blow up they've had with the delivery guy, and they've got all their stuff on the outside, and it's just good visuals. And this FBI agent comes along after that and starts questioning them, and Marty just comes up with a cover because it's mentioned that his partner was like found dead. At first he says disappeared, but then it moves along to the suggestion that he's been murdered, and I think they even bring up the cartel as a way to like put pressure on Marty and to try and turn him and say, well, we can offer you witness protection, all the rest of it. But Marty's obviously too terrified to take that chance, so he sort of comes up with this cover story where he says that his partner got upset because he dissolved the business, and he says he dissolved the business because he got wind of him doing some illegal stuff, and so sort of a mix of the truth and a bit of lying as well. But he obviously makes out that he has no part in it at all, then it was all his partner, and he just got wind of it a little bit, then he didn't know that much. So that's that scene, but obviously the feds are going to keep on investigating, and it's going to be a running plot in the show. And as I said earlier, it's a big episode for Ruth, because she really shows her dominance. And Julia Garner is so good. I mean, for such a young actress, she really carries these scenes so well. Like, as I said, when Marty hires her, she convinces him, she talks him into it. And I mean, I've got the quote, I think, up on the screen now. I'd sure as shit rather have someone like me nearby. And that's sort of part of the way she convinces him that it's better to have her close by, because she does have stuff on him, rather than just running about where she could maybe tell the wrong people and get him into danger. And we just see her slowly getting more of a foothold in the episode and in this whole thing. And I think one of the strong things about Julia Garner is the way she's so small and kind of meek, and she's a pretty looking gal and very sort of innocent. She's got this southern like twang, but how she just twists that around, and how she makes herself seem a bit more unhinged or a bit more like threatening. And we see through her almost like the big statement of the show, this idea of capitalism, how flawed it is in its modern like state, and how limiting it is, how if you're not at the top, if you don't have a lot of money, how it doesn't really work for you, how there's all these obstacles. And one of the things so far that we've definitely seen with the women in this show, Wendy's a good example, and I think Ruth maybe even more so, is that a lot of times, even more so for women than men, they have these hurdles, and that just playing the game, just being nice and just working hard and doing your best, a lot of times isn't enough. And we see with a character like Ruth, who isn't necessarily on the face of it like a sympathetic character. She's like down there in the mud as well. Obviously she's had a certain sort of upbringing which hasn't helped, but on the face of it, from what we've seen so far, she's not necessarily a likeable character or sympathetic, and does make bad choices. But at the same time, I think the show is definitely showing how someone like her, as a young girl, has sort of even more less of an opportunity than like a guy would, basically. And she sums it up in a line later when she's talking to her brother, where she just comes up with a line that says, a lot of times in life, it's better to be smarter. And that's part of the thing with the character, that she feels she has to come up with these schemes, these like underhanded schemes to get ahead, and she has to play, in this case Marty at his own game, but be even more cutthroat. And she has to do that to get ahead, because she feels like there's no other option, sort of thing. So I think in many ways she's like the hallmark of what the show is saying about modern like capitalism. And we see her, as I said, gain more and more power throughout the episode. So it builds to this scene where she explains to her brother, actually, like the one who she's closer to, the one who they were both working at the motel, the resort, or whatever you want to call it, but they were working there together. So she's sort of closer to him than, I think, because they're closer in age. Like she has a closer bond with him than she does the other brothers, where there's a little more of an aggression. I think because they tried to like dominate her and boss her around and tell her what to do. Obviously, the brother's a bit more, shy and not as outgoing, not as sort of bolstery. But she explains to him, then, don't worry, before long we'll be rich, I'll sort all this out. And she lays out a plan later to the other brothers, and the plan is basically that I'm going to learn all the tricks of the trade when it comes to laundering money and stuff from Marty, and it'll get to the point where I'll build up my standing with him, and I'll be in a position to make all this millions of money, and then when I don't need him anymore, I'll kill him. So that's her plan, and it's laid out, and you get this brilliant sort of final scene where, because the two brothers have brought these tigers, and their idea is to breed and make money off them. And first of all, Ruth's pissed off because they've spent some of the money they stole from Marty on these tigers. I think they're tigers, I can't quite remember, but anyway, the plan is to breed off them. But that's the first black mark. The second black mark is they brought the wrong gender anyway. They're both female, so they can't breed off them. So that's the second nail in the coffin. And again, it's quite a funny scene. There's quite a few funny scenes in this episode, but you get this really distinct ending to the episode where she has a gun and she forces them into the cage just to make sort of a point about who's running this operation, who's in control. And it's at that point when they're in the cage, she explains her plan with Marty, and she actually leaves them there for the night, I think just to mess with them and just to again assert her dominance. So again, it's solid storytelling, and the metaphor is sort of there because you've got these animals and they've gone in the cage, and there's some good connective stuff in the episode because obviously you've got the stuff with dead animals earlier in the episode. So it's solid stuff. I mean, I would say so far I'm enjoying Ozark. I wouldn't say it's knocking it out the park. I wouldn't say at the moment I can see what some of the fuss and hype is about, but it's going along at a good steady pace with intriguing character scenes, intriguing moments, some decent comedy thrown in as well, and you can sort of see the potential anyway. You can see the progression and how the characters and the storytelling is growing. So fingers crossed it'll carry on like this. So that's episode 3, my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts if you're watching for the first time in the comments below. Like and subscribe and share me out on social media. But I'll be back with more Ozark soon. Thanks for listening and goodbye.